man. But the patented top 10 reasons, top 10 things, important elements of negative strategy. And so I have planted somewhere in the audience 10 unwilling participants who are here to help us today. So everybody I gave a little piece of papers to is like, uh-oh. So without further ado, will the person with number 10 please stand up? Who has number 10? Oh, Mary Jo! How you doing? How are you doing today?
I'm good.
Where are you from?
Rochester.
Rochester, New York?
Yeah.
Right on. Well, what's number 10, please?
Make better arguments.
Make better arguments. You're saying, this is obvious. I don't need to, make better arguments. What are you talking about? Use metaphors to explain ideas that are complicated. Focus on ideas rather than taglines or jargon in debate. Never ever leave a position, right? I'm done with the counterplan, I'm going to the disadvantage. Never leave a position without explaining what happens if you win that position. When I win the counterplan, it means that I solve all the case advantages and avoid the disadvantage. When I win this disadvantage, it proves that the affirmative team causes a massive thermonuclear war, right? This is the fundamental element of making yourself better negative debaters. That's why it's number 10. It's very, very important. What about number 9? Well, number 9, please stand up. Who's number 9? Oh, this is trouble. What's your name, young man?
Sean.
Sean, where are you from?
Arizona.
Arizona. That's a long way. Why'd you come all the way to Vermont?
I have no idea.
Now that's some risk analysis. What's number 9, Sean? Share with us.
Make decisions, don't let them be made for you.
Give it one more time. I don't think anybody
Make
understood.
decisions, don't let them be made for you.
Make decisions. Don't let them be made for you. Thank you very much, Sean. Good job. Have a seat. How many times, I've been judging debates a long time, almost as long as Kate Schuster, actually longer than Kate Schuster. She's one of my favorite debaters to ever judge. She and her partner were rank as easily probably the top 3 teams I've ever debated, so judge. Love them. I've been judging debates a long time, and all the time I finish, and I'll ask a negative team, I'll say, well, why did you go for this argument? And I'll say, well, we had no other choices. That was the only thing available to us. You always have choices in the debate. And if you execute the fundamental element of the negative has so many advantages that there's zero reason why you should ever be forced to make certain decisions, right? If you make tons of arguments in the first negative constructive that are all diverse arguments that are things that are good that you can win on, right? I'm not assuming that you've made a single argument or that you've made one good argument and 10 bad ones, right? But you have a diverse option, a couple of good things you could win on, a couple of different options, right? The 2AC makes some answers to those. The negative block, you make your first series of decisions, and you make those arguments you've chosen to make them very big, make it really hard, and then in the 2NR you make another series of decisions. It's structurally almost impossible for negative to lose. You may lose on technical elements, but provided that you make choices early in the debate, you will never get jacked and be in the situation, well, I had to go for conditionality bad. Or many of the things that Kate was talking about. You will no longer need to use your DLR. Do we have number 8? Is number 8 in the house? Oh. What's your name?
Erica.
Erica, where are you from?
South Carolina.
South Carolina. South Carolina. Yeehaw.
It's,
How is that? Have you enjoyed your time here at debate camp?
It's been great.
It's been enjoyable?
It's really hot, but
That's, compared to South Carolina, you're still in safe space.
Yeah,
So.
but dorms aren't air conditioned.
Dorms aren't air conditioned. This is Vermont. Structurally they were thinking, let's see, there's 3 weeks of hot weather and hundreds of weeks of warm weather. I think the complaint would be much bigger on the other side. So tell us what number 8 is.
Craft negative strategy to acknowledge judges' preferences without sucking up.
Craft your negative strategy to acknowledge judges' preferences. All that they'll see right here is a gigantic picture of my mouth. Craft negative strategy to acknowledge judge preferences without sucking them up. Here's a secret that I'm going to share only with you. Don't tell anybody else. All judges hate dumb arguments. This is startling to many of you, but from debates I judge, this is something I need to tell everyone, right? People make bad arguments all the time, and let me phrase this the other way. Any judge will be convinced by a good argument. And when I think of judge, people seem to think that judges join teams. There's the critique judges, and there are disadvantaged counterplan judges, and there are judges who will or won't vote on theory or topicality, etc. With a few minor exceptions, Steve Woods being one, John Katsoulis being the other. And literally, I've named the two judges who are very inflexible in their dispositions. Everybody else is willing to judge almost anything, right? I am widely known as a critique judge, a critique-friendly judge. The perception is that I love politics disadvantages. I love good topicality debates, and almost anybody is. When you debate, you should keep in mind, judge the things that you should affect your strategy. I'm sorry, Meredith, I keep cruising. I'll stay here for a minute or two at least.
Too much caffeine.
Yeah. Shut up. Right? The things you should keep in mind are things that will make the judges connect to your arguments. Does their team run a very similar case or argument? Right? That might suggest that they are very involved in the literature, and you can make remember the argument I was talking about during the last lecture, how if you can connect to the judge on some argument and your other team has no idea what's going on, you're a huge advantage? Well, that's the case in this situation, right? If you know that your judge does all the Clinton research, all the Bush dis research for their other team, you run that Bush disadvantage and you're pretty good on the debate, and you can really talk about the scenarios and stuff, you'll have a great conversation. They'll be like, oh yeah, I read that article last night. Oh yeah, I know all about that. Oh, I'm really into it. That's the kind of thing that can influence your strategy. Not that I hear this person really doesn't like affirmatives that are even the slightest bit non-topical. Run your case and just deal with it. Winston.
Well, what if you have a judge, since you already know the judge does that, that's their opinion on your team, but they're really not good at the debate.
Oh, excellent question.
Would it make a harder time for you to get a win out of that?
Sure, if you're not ready to debate that, don't alter your fundamental strategy. Your fundamental negative strategy should not change unless it's Steve Woods or John Katsoulis. Everybody else, do what you gotta do, right? If you're good at an argument, make the argument, win the argument, the judge will vote for you. The only thing that can influence this, and it should influence maybe 1 or 2%, is the thing I'm talking about. So by and large, I'm suggesting don't change your strategy for the judge. He's number 7 in the house. Number 7. Did number 7 go home?
No, I got it.
Can't believe it.
It says recognize the turning points of debate and prepare to win them.
What's your name?
Scott,
Scott, where are you from, Scott?
I get to see your smiling face every day. I'm from Madison.
Oh. I planned it on Scott because I felt he needed a little encouragement.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Recognize the turning points of debates and prepare to win them. Every debate round I judge really usually comes down to 2 or 3 critical questions. Did you win this hotly contested idea? If you've won this turning point. Now, stage 1 of this is understanding where the turning points are in debates. Stage 2 is something that, good debaters learn this, but the second half of it is preparing and getting good at winning that debate. And that's an easy thing to do. If you know that a big link debate on the politics disadvantage is going to come up, and that's going to be your big strategy in this debate, you can prepare by writing out blocks, thinking about reasons, right? The best thing you can do to prepare to break ties in debate is to read through your evidence and make notes on the margins of the evidence that explain what the reasons are in your argument. So that when it's time in the rebuttals to extend those arguments, you don't just extend the card. You take that piece of evidence, you don't even have to have it written on your flow. You take that piece of evidence and say, extend the Johnson in 97 evidence, it clearly explains, and then you go to the margin notes and you say, it explains that the affirmative plan will cause massive political capital loss to George Bush because it will look like he's flip-flopping on issues, right? Some complicated reason that's there. That's one of the easiest things you can do. What would be the turning points in a politics disadvantage? What do you think the biggest turning point in a politics disadvantage is? I'm asking. The links? I would say, despite the impulse to say links, I would say that uniqueness is by and large the most important turning point in the politics disadvantage debate. And the main reason for that is that whichever team generally will win uniqueness right? If the negative proves that the disadvantage is non-unique, then by and large, the disadvantage isn't going to mean that much. But if the affirmative team wins that it's going to be unique, then the link terms aren't going to be very threatening. And that may sound confusing to you, and we don't need to explain it all right now. But suffice to say that uniqueness is where you should really focus in terms of politics debates in winning and losing. What about on a counterplan? What would be the critical crux turning point of the debate on a counterplan? Net benefit, questions of competition, clearly, hands down. I used to run a disarmament counterplan against any affirmative that had anything to do with the military. And they would say, well, we move these subs 10 feet to the east so that they can get a better nuclear readiness. I would say, we disarm all military. Against West Point, I used to say, well, y'all gotta go home now. Right? I took your job, thank you for coming. You know, your permutation isn't gonna work because, you don't have school. Right? I knew that the permutation against this counterplan was coming. I knew it was a big debate. So I used to write these 10-point permutation blocks with really crazy arguments, and I would just swamp the other side. On the perm, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. On the second perm, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Who cares if you might lose a little bit of the net benefits debate, but if you win these turning points of the debate, the rest of the debate will go your way. It's a question of where to put your energy. On a critique, I would say that the most important thing to keep in mind and to really win is the question of why there's a reason to reject the affirmative team. And I think that gets hideously undercovered. All right, we're moving right along. Number 6, where are you at? Oh, look at this. What's your name?
Lori,
Where are you from?
Chico, California.
California. Well, welcome to the great state of Vermont. Share with us your number 6.
Recognize that debate is a game of time.
Recognize that debate is a game of time. Fundamental. One of my favorite theorists that I've read in all of my life is a guy named Miyamoto Musashi, who wrote a book called The Book of Five Rings. Have any of you read it before? It's a Japanese book of strategy about samurai, and I happen to love samurai or whatever, but he is very explicit that timing is the way of the warrior, and it's the fundamental question about whether or not you win or lose. 1 NCs pressure 2 ACs to drop things. 2 NCs prepped out who stand right up and pressure the time, the thing that Kate was talking about, to jack people's preparation time. Division of labor and good arguments are fundamentally ways to pressure your opponent's time, speech time, preparation time. Think of the debate in terms of time. When Kate writes up this thing that says, think about it in terms of 30-second intervals, the reason she's doing that is because she wants you to recognize that every second that you have on your side is an opportunity. Now, you can use it or you can throw it away, but it's an opportunity. It's a space where you can debate. Right? Having lots of preparation for the 2NR allows for good argument exploration. At any point of the debate, you should use preparation time if you think you need it. The only exception, of course, is if you're down to like 30 seconds and you're going to destroy your partner's, redneck speeches. But if you need to think more for the 1NR, and I'm by far in the minority for this, take a minute. Say, look, I just need to figure this out. I need to make sure I win these arguments clearly. Right? Don't do it out of fear, but time is a tool, fundamental tool. Number 5, where are you at? Stand up. What's your name, young man? Matthew. Matthew, where are you from?
Go to school at the University of Rochester.
University of Rochester. The Fighting Wild Bees? Is that what you are?
Yellow Jackets.
Yellow Jackets.
Yellow Jackets.
So smelly hornets.
Right.
Something like Yellow Jacket. Very dangerous. Very dangerous. Just like the Fighting Kangaroos of UMKC. Very dangerous. So
Let's take a look at our t-shirts.
So share with us quickly number 5.
Make the maximum variety of negative arguments.
Make the maximum variety of negative arguments. Don't repeat yourself. On case, don't repeat a case term. You want multiple avenues to win. Because debate is a game of time, it requires your opponents to spend more time to answer a variety of arguments than the ability to gather together all your arguments. All these arguments are the same thing. Here are my 2 answers. That's the worst thing you want to hear. Don't run disadvantages with the same impact. It begs your opponents to do a big impact turn debate. If you can't distinguish between your critiques, you will sound bad. Right? There should be a clear reason why these 2 critiques you're running in this debate are very different arguments. Number 4, where are you at in the house? Woo-hoo. What's your name?
Grace,
Grace, where are you from?
Middlebury.
Middlebury, Vermont. The Green Mountain State. Share with us number 4.
I do not allow the advantages of a case to go unturned.
Don't allow advantages of a case to go undebated. I think that's what it says.
Yes, you're right.
These are not for free form, you know, people. Dave Letterman doesn't have this happen to him. It's like dropping a diss app. This is a conceptual thing, and debaters do it all the time, right? When you're negative and you're debating an affirmative case, they'll read, there are 3 advantages to the whaling affirmative. You need to debate all 3 of them. At least figure out some argument to debate all 3 of them. Because if you ignore any one of them, then the affirmative team is going to say, well, you know, here's my advantage that's humongous that I'm going to beat you around with. Absolutely, but where's number 3? Number 3. Oh, you, sir. What's your name?
George.
George, where are you from?
Clarion, Pennsylvania.
What was the most interesting thing you've eaten at debate camp?
Probably sand. I'm not really sure what it was, so that really qualifies as interesting. It was at some little burritos place, though.
All right, all right. Share with us number 3.
All right, I'm not going to freeform. I'll say exactly what it says. It says, are not married to their strategies.
Oh, good negative debaters are not married to negative strategies. What's up, Big D? Just trash. Here looking for fresh blood to feed. Nosferatu. Sorry. I will officially tell you David is not a vampire. He's a quarter vampire on his grandmother's side. Don't be married to your strategy. And here are the 2 reasons. Number 1 is that affirmative teams will screw something up that you hadn't expected, and you should be willing to punish them for their mistakes. All right? And number 2 is that sometimes affirmative teams will whoop you on the argument that you really think is your best. They'll just straight up beat you, in which case you're going to need to go someplace else to win the debate. All right? Number 2. Where you at? Where's number 2? Ah, B. Where you from? What's your name? Where you from? UVM, right? So is it a long commute for you in the morning?
Yeah, it's about half a block. So.
You know, we feel a lot of sympathy for you. Do you have air conditioning at your house? No. Okay, if that were to happen, we would turn on you like a massive rabid dog and tear you literally led by the woman from South Carolina.
Mine says incorporates affirmative answers into the negative strategy.
Negatives incorporate affirmative answers into their strategy. Recognize that topicality answers, where they say, we really use the federal government, we really screw Native Americans, right? Those are links. That's where you'll receive your disadvantage ground. That's where you'll receive your counterplan ground and your critique ground. Expect the permutations that are going to come against your counterplan, and recognize that you can provide new links to those. Right, not radical. And, keeping it within time so we can actually go to lunch, the number 1 good thing that negative debaters do in strategy is represented by, who's got number 1?
Maya from Towson.
Oh, welcome. So share with us the number 1 thing good debaters should do about strategy.
Plan 1NC negative strategy with the 2NR in mind.
Plan the 1NC negative strategy with the 2NR in mind. I can't stress this enough. My debaters, and Scott and Helena, of course, are the exception, but by and large, they're very satisfied when they were able to successfully complete the 1NC. You should not be those debaters, right? It's not just filling up the 1NC with arguments, right? It's conceptualizing how those arguments are going to happen in the debate. And I think that the easiest way to do this is to take a piece of paper and write down all the major arguments, including major case debate that's going to go on, including potential debate that's going to occur. If you're going to run a radical, offensive, crazy counterplan, the Kate Schuster version, right, be prepared that you're going to have to spend some time doing the theory debate on that, right? After you've done that, divide up the division of labor. Make it clear who's going to go for what arguments. And then figure out what arguments you're planning on kicking and who's responsible for kicking that. And then figure out what arguments you really want to be in the 2NR. This is all conditional. Figure out what argument sets you want that, we're not done yet, settle down, right? What argument sets you want in the 2NR? Do you want the counterplan to the disad set? Do you want to just go for topicality? Are you going to go for a case turn and case mitigation debate, right? Consider some of the possible permutations. Think about all the factors. Are you good at those debates? Does your judge vote on those kinds of things? All that stuff. But plan the negative strategy with the 2NR in mind. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And